Hello and welcome back to Crate Digging with Carter. This is episode 6 of my Tone Poet review series for June of 2026, where I review this month's 2 Blue Note Tone Poet reissues. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into talking about these month's 2 releases. So, we've got, first of all, Components by Bobby Hutcherson and Curtis Amy, Tippin on Through. Now, I'll be using my review system I've used in my previous videos where I talk about the presentation, approachability, music quality, value, and my overall score out of 10 for each record. So let's go ahead and start by talking about Components by Bobby Hutcherson. Now, this record was released in 1966, recorded in 1965. It's got a killer lineup on here. So you've got Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, James Spaulding on alto sax and flute. You've got Bobby Hutcherson on vibes and marimba, Herbie Hancock, the master, on piano, Ron Carter on bass, and Joe Chambers on drums. So let's talk about the presentation of this record. I think this record has a very compelling presentation. You've got your Francis Wolff photograph up front, both the session photo here of Bobby Hutcherson and this really unique image of Components. It's got this unique light and shadow effect going on here with all these different components going on. And then we've got killer session photos on the inside and some really great liner notes by Nat Hentoff that breaks down each track, gives a little bit of history on each artist too. It's just fantastic. And I think what's really cool about this record here is that Components, obviously the name of the record, got the picture of the components. And when you listen to the music, there are a lot of different components. Each track kind of pieces together and they're unique and distinct in their own way, but they paint a very beautiful whole. The same thing with the artists. They're distinct and prominent in their own way, but they work together really, really well. I think Components is a great title for this record and a great image to have on this record. This is, one of my favorite Blue Note records that I have seen in terms of the presentation. So for that reason, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. All around fantastic. I also love that it has all of our artists lined up top here, so you can see right away, which players are going to be in this record. I always love that little addition right there. So, 10 out of 10 on presentation. Next, let's talk about the approachability of this music. Now, is this music you could kind of sit back, relax to, put on at dinner? Yes. Is it also records that if you put on, and you're playing it at dinner, you might get some weird stares from your friends, is it sometimes difficult to relax to? Also, yes. How can that be true at the same time? Answer is, it depends on which side of the record you play. The A side is very much in the traditional straight-ahead hard bop vein. All of the tracks there were composed by Bobby Hutcherson. On the B side, the drummer, Joe Chambers, composed those tracks. And that's more free, more avant-garde, more use of space, less melodious, but nonetheless compelling. So depending on which side of the record you're getting on, you're going to get a different answer on the approachability of it. A side, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. I think you can play it almost any time. There's some really beautiful tracks on there. It's a lot of fun. B side, a little more challenging, but nonetheless very cool, great for deep listening, and a great for jazz lovers. So I'm going to give the B side a 3 out of 10 on approachability. I could average it out and say, hey, it's a 6 out of 10, but I don't think that really conveys the true approachability of the record. So for that, I'm going to give it a double score of a 9 out of 10 and a 3 out of 10. So let's start talking about the music quality. What type of music can you expect? I already talked that you had your approachable side and your more challenging side. But each track is distinct and unique in their own way too. So you start off with Components. Classic hard bop track, a lot of fun. Every instrument has its time to shine, and it's just a great track to really kick off the album. Classic in its own right. Then you go into Tranquility, a very relaxed, very laid back, loose, no real sense of time, just a really beautiful, beautiful track. Super calm, super relaxing, beautiful piece, Tranquility. Then you go to Little Bee's Poem, a fun, playful tune written by Bobby Hutcherson about his son playing when he was little. I think that's just fantastic. And then you've got West 22nd Street Theme, bluesy, hard bop track with some killer blues solos in there. I love it. I think it's fantastic and a great way to wrap up the A side. And then you flip to the B side, whole different vibe. So those are written by Joe Chambers. You've got movement, the instruments coming together in and out. There's complex rhythms, less melody, but all the instruments still work together and still paint this beautiful picture. There's mysterious. Everyone has their time to shine. It's awesome. Juba Dance, another track, a little bit more upbeat. There's still fun moments in there. Again, everyone has their time to shine. It's a little bit more structured. There's more rhythm in there. It's really cool. And then we've got Air, which really emphasizes, as you'd imagine with Air, a great use of space between the instruments. Very sparse moments highlighting each player, like I've been saying throughout, but really, really cool. And then it wraps with Pastoral, which is kind of a return to a structured approach to close out the album. I think it's a really unique way to approach a record, and I think it's really special. So for this reason, I'm giving music quality 9 out of 10. I think this is a great one. If you're a Blue Note fan and you haven't heard this record, check this out. I think this is a great addition to most all jazz collections. And then finally, let's talk about the value of this record. So this record is, there have been several reissues in the past. Originals, though, are still kind of expensive and hard to get. They're going to range anywhere from about $150 to $300 if they're in decent condition, and whether or not you get a mono or a stereo pressing. So for that reason, I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. You can find originals, you can find reissues. Most of them are going to be around $40 for a reissue, but they're not done by Kevin Gray, and they're not going to be as high of a quality as this and this nice gatefold jacket with these awesome session photos. So I think this is really a definitive reissue to grab. And unless you want to spend quite a bit of money on an original, this is a great copy to have in your collection. I'm happy to have it. So overall, I think this is a great record for jazz lovers of all types, and I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10 overall. All right, without further ado, let's jump into Curtis Amy's Tippin' On Through. This was actually initially recorded by Pacific Jazz Records. It was recorded live at the Lighthouse, and it was recorded in 1962. It's got a really unique lineup on here. So you've got Curtis Amy on tenor. You've got Roy Brewster playing the valve trombone. You don't see a lot of that in a lot of Blue Note records or Pacific Jazz records for that matter, and I think it really adds a lot. Roy Ayers on vibes, so 2 vibe-heavy records. John Huston on piano. Bob Whitlock on bass. And making his second appearance in the Tonepo reissue series for 2026, Lawrence Marable on drums, a classic West Coast drummer and band leader and influencer. All right, so let's talk about the presentation of this record. Now, this record, unfortunately, I think it has a similar effect to City Lights by Lee Morgan that was reissued earlier this year. The photo quality on here, I think, is a little too dark. It could be lightened up, and it could present something a little bit stronger here. I think the band kind of gets lost over here on the side. You can still see Curtis Amy and Roy Brewster here, but again, kind of faded, lost in the background. I think if you just lighten this up, I looked at some pictures of the originals, I think you get a better photo quality here, and maybe they weren't able to do that, but I would have liked to see this just a little bit clearer and lighter. But regardless, it's a cool photo. You can definitely see the presence of the vibes, the saxophone, the valve trombone, bass and drums in the background there. So I think it's still really cool. I like the brown. I think I like the clarity of the image here. Curtis Amy prominent. Tippin' On Through is a great name for the record too. So I think that's really cool. And we've got some awesome liner notes on the back from the original Pacific Jazz release. And as Blue Note tends to do whenever they don't have session photos from Pacific Jazz, we do get additional liner notes written by Sid Schwartz from the Reel to Reel Syncopated Rewind. There is one photo of Curtis Amy on the back, which I appreciate, and it's in pretty good quality too. So, yeah, overall, I think it's a decent presentation, but there is one thing that I think was amiss on this record that could have added a lot, in my opinion, that they did not take advantage of. So when this record was originally released in 1962, they actually issued them several, at least one variant of them that's still being sold today, not being sold today, but you can still find today, was on red vinyl. And I know colored vinyl is a gimmick, it doesn't really impact anything, but I think it would have been cool to have a Tonepo reissue on red vinyl, throwing back to the original release. And I think if they would have added that in, I would have given it some more points. If they would have cleared this photo up, I would have given it some more points too. That being said, I think it's got, a solid presentation, but there are some missed things on here, so I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. All right, now let's talk about the approachability of this record. I think overall, this is just a live jam session, people having fun. everyone kind of playing at their best, and this is a iconic moment in the hard bop scene on the West Coast. Very approachable. Each one of these tracks is unique and distinct and fun in their own way. Nothing's going to challenge the listener too much, but there are some really cool moments throughout this. So that being said, I'm giving this one a 9 out of 10. Now, music quality. What can I say about this music quality-wise? I think there's some really, really cool moments on here that provide some unique flavoring that you don't see in a lot of other jazz records, namely Roy Brewster on valve trombone. There's no trumpet, no traditional trombone on here, but I think the use of the valve trombone adds a kind of a little bit of each. It makes the band sound bigger than it is, and I think Roy Brewster really adds a lot to this record, which I think is a highlight for me. Roy Ayers on vibes. 2 vibe-heavy jazz records this month. You don't see vibes a ton. You do definitely see them as some, obviously you've got Lionel Hampton, and you've got Bobby Hutcherson, right? So there are vibraphonists in jazz, but it's not extremely common. So I appreciate that as well. Lawrence Marble on drums, always great. John Huston on piano, I'm not familiar with, but he's got a track on here. It is a Dave Brubeck track in Your Own Sweet Way that he kind of just gets to solo throughout with just the rhythm section. I think it's really cool. There's a track on here that really highlights Ayers as well, called For Ayers Only. Great vibraphone solos throughout there, a lot of fun. Everyone has their moment to shine in this jam session. There's solos for bass and drums, piano, obviously saxophone with Curtis Amy. So everyone really has their time to shine, as they would if you were to watch them live. Usually everyone has kind of their moment to showcase themselves in solo, which I think is a lot of fun. So that's fantastic. Now, is there any moments in this that are really groundbreaking, really like, oh man, like this is out of this world? Not necessarily, but it is a fun record throughout. Definitely recommend checking this one out, and it's a great addition to the collection. So for this reason, I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10. Solid music, nothing out of this world, not a must-have, but overall just a great, fun live recording of Curtis Amy and his band. So yeah, and then let's talk about value on this guy. So there are actually, as far as I could tell, no reissues of this after the 60s, which is really cool. So this is the first reissue in over 60 years of this record. So that's kind of special in its own way. But you can still find original pressings of this relatively affordable. I've seen some online from the $25 to $100 range, depending on if it's mono or stereo and the quality and all of those things. But I do think it's possible to find these. As an example, behind me here, I've got a copy of Groove and Blue by Curtis Amy and Frank Butler. And I actually found this at my local record store for $30, original pressing in great shape. So it is possible to find Curtis Amy records around at a reasonable price, potentially cheaper than a Tone Poet. But if you find this and wait for the right sale, you can get this cheaper than an original and with more ease as well. Order it online, get it at your local record store. It might be easier and save you a little bit of money as well. And you've got Kevin Gray on here doing the mastering, which is just fantastic. So for that reason, I'm giving this one a 6 out of 10 on value. You can definitely find originals for a reasonable price, but I think this one might eke it out just a little bit. Real quick, one more thing I wanted to add before we move on here and close out about this record by Curtis Amy is that it was actually not engineered by Rudy Van Gelder. Instead, it was engineered by a gentleman named Richard Bach on the West Coast. And he took a very different approach than Rudy Van Gelder. He actually recorded in a live environment and emphasized the bass, the feel of the room. So this one's not going to feel like your traditional RVG Blue Note recording. It's going to have a different vibe to it. So it's something worth mentioning. I don't really have a category of how to rate that, but it's a different flavor to a record too. So check it out. You're going to hear more bass heavy. You're going to feel the space more. It's different than RVG, but check it out. It adds a different layer on there. I just wanted to throw that in real quick. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. If you agree with me or disagree with me or have any thoughts on these two releases, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, good luck out there, great day.